Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
He helps a lot of people, including business owners, CEOs, professionals, navigate their life also professionally and personally. He's a coach of all sorts. And we're going to talk today about the holidays, especially if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur. There's a lot of different stress that happens, a lot of different things that you have to navigate. So we're going to dig deep into that. Ben Eden is back with us. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
I'm so good, Steve. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Good to have you here. It's almost hard to believe, but we're a few days away from the holidays, and then New Year's another week and change away. What are some of the things you're hearing from entrepreneurs, people in business? What are they thinking about, worrying about as we get through the holidays?
Well, certainly it's a balance of home and work is what they're thinking about, right? And with work, they're meeting some deadlines, meeting some goals, or at least hoping to, right? So some stress of closing some deals or getting some projects done or getting enough money. And at the same time, they're about to go on break or hopefully on break, right? Or at least would like to go on break. So there's that stress. Let's say they do get to go on break and they get to have some time with their family. Then there's the difficulty of shutting it off and saying, hey, I have some time with my family. Am I going to enjoy that time with my family? Or am I going to be sick of my kids and I don't like to be sick of my kids? Is my mind going to be on work this whole time? So there's a lot of things going on in the minds of these entrepreneurs right now.
Hmm. Yeah, when you put the family component in and the stress of even worrying about, for a lot of business owners, 2023, the plan there, are accounts going to, depending on your business, are accounts going to renew in the new year? And making sure that you're ready to hit the ground running. How do you minimize that stress, that fear, those worries that not just entrepreneurs have, just anybody in general?
I'll teach you a skill that applies to a lot of things, but really helps in this setting. We make 3 decisions all day, every day. And here they are. We choose what we focus on, we choose what meaning we give it, and that makes us decide how we feel. So in other words, what we focus on, what meaning we give it, and the emotion we feel. So in this case, if we're focusing on the deals that need to close, and if they're not closed yet, then that means, oh, they might not close. And if that doesn't close, then next year looks like this. That's the meaning we're giving it. Then the emotion is fear, panic. I don't have control. I don't know what to do, and that kind of thing. Now, it sounds simple, but this really works. If we change our focus to say, best case scenario does close. What does that mean? And then how do I feel? Worst case scenario, this guy blasts my social media. What does that mean? And then how would I feel? Okay, now that I've considered both elements, what's the most likely scenario? It's probably very unlikely that they're going to do the social media thing. Okay, so I'm good. And even if it did, how would I react? Okay, now I'm in control. And then best or most likely scenario is they're probably going to close because of all the preparation that I've done. And it's very likely. So I'm going to trust that process. And then what happens when we go through this process in our brain is no longer grasping at straws saying, I need some certainty here. It says, I have understood the certainty I can have, and now I can focus on what I need to right now, whether it be my kids in front of me or whether it be this phone call that I'm on.
Do you feel it's a good idea and very beneficial to physically write these things down? The thoughts that you're having, the potential outcomes, even just put, something on this column, something on that column, so you can physically see it and get it out of you?
Absolutely. There is power in clarity, or in other words, clarity is power. And when we're stuck in our head, then we don't see our thoughts clearly. And then we think, actually, we don't even know what we're thinking sometimes. As crazy as that sounds,
Oh
our
no, I got
subconscious
you.
is at
And
work. Yeah.
I totally know where you're, and that's where I brought that up, because when you're thinking about those things, the thoughts are swirling in your head, and you could pivot from one thought to another in a nanosecond and not really clearly process it. And then what do you have? Basically, a lot of emotional garbage, just like ping ponging back and forth in your head. That's totally not serving you, and probably not going to
Right.
take place, but you're worried about it.
Exactly. So to your point, when you write it down, first of all, the physical act of writing it down causes you to slow down. And when you see it, then your brain says, oh, that's what I'm thinking. Do I like that or do I not? And then it can make a decision based on that thought. And a lot of times when we write it down, we're like, oh, that's not so bad. Or I can't believe I think that. That's crazy. Let me change that story.
Right. Right. You may be putting so much more weight or worry on a potential situation here, but when you see it and don't type it, physically write it, that you realize that why did I do that? It's not that bad as I'm thinking. Like wow, like you just said, clarity. You have the clarity when you put it down there.
Right. And here's, I'll tell you a little bit on the deeper scale why this works. Because I will tell you these situations, let's talk about the client that we hope that closes because we want the numbers, we want the quota, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
I am validating the fact that that is important to somebody. I get it. We want that to happen because of all the things that it could mean for our business. And there's a lot of emotions tied to that. I want to feel excited. I want to feel fulfilled. If I don't get it, I think I will feel like a failure or stressed, and I don't want to feel that. That's all subconsciously going on in our mind. And when, like you said, we write it down, that kind of, sometimes it can either bypass the emotion because it's like, oh, now I know what I'm feeling instead of being afraid of what I might feel. Or it gives you a chance to acknowledge the emotion and say, I really want this deal to close. Why? Oh, because I'm feeling this. And let me tell you, if you try to just bypass the emotion, it'll stick with you because emotions are they're there until they get their message told.
Mm. So how do you or can you purge those emotions out by confronting them, let's say, on a piece of paper with a pen and thinking, looking for the clarity in it? How do you move it out of the way?
I'll give you a story to help illustrate
Sure.
and then go back to your paper. So yesterday, my 9-year-old, we went to a white elephant gift party. So you wrap your presents, they're random gifts, you give them to whoever, right? Most people know what white elephant is, but there you go. And so he spends $5 of his own money to buy this gift, and everybody gets their gifts. And he had a different expectation of how the game would go.
Mm.
And long story short, the gift that he wanted was taken from him in the game and given to somebody else. And so the gift he got was not anything what he wanted. All right. And so at the end of the night, the focus he had was, I didn't get the gift I wanted and somebody stole it from me. The meaning was, I hate white elephant games. I will never do it again. And the person who stole from me owes me $5. Because of that meaning, he felt disappointed, frustrated, angry, and all the emotions that come from it, right? Now, as a parent, it is very easy to just jump to the logical and say, dude, it's just a game. White elephant games are meant to be fun. You'll get over it. It's just $5, whatever, sticker we want to put on it. That doesn't work. Why?
Hmm.
Because the kid is still dealing with his emotion. And you can't just bypass it. That's what most people try to do, let me tell you. And then we get good at using the drugs and the addictions and whatever else. But what has to happen is you have to acknowledge the emotion. So what does that mean? Again, it sounds simple, but it works. You need to name or notice the emotion. Okay, I'm feeling something. Then give it a name.
Hmm.
I'm feeling disappointed. And then sit with it for a second. It's not going to kill you. You're afraid it might overwhelm you. I get it, but it won't. So you sit with, okay, I'm disappointed. Yes, I am. I validate that. And then after you've given it its time, and sometimes it's only 5 to 10 seconds is what's needed, sometimes longer, sometimes not. Then you say, well, what's its opposite that I want to feel? And then you go do what's necessary to make that happen. An example is that you change your focus, you get a different meaning, and therefore you feel excited or happy or generous instead, right? But to your point, when you write it down, and I'll just give you another quick example if that's okay.
Sure.
Because of this importance of emotions. I've heard about the mindset, the positive thinking, all that's important. But if you don't do this emotion thing, you'll be stuck and you'll wonder why. So a few years ago, I was not married. And so, I wanted some social, I wanted to be around some people. And so I invited some friends over. I said, hey, this is going to be fun. They're at my place. We're going to have a good time. I have some games planned, some food planned. Great. And I was hoping to feel connection and love and having a good time. But let me tell you, after an hour or so of that party, I was like, yeah, I'm not having a good time. And I wanted these guys to go home. And at the end of the night, after they did go home, I was like, that was lame. I really don't know why. What I hoped would be great was not great, and I'm very frustrated. And my initial reaction was to say, well, I'm just going to watch TV until I'm tired and go to bed because I really don't want to think about this. And I kind of want to forget about tonight. But thankfully, I understood this deal about emotions. And so I pulled out my journal and I just started writing down. And I did not write. So you have to do this differently. I didn't say I had a party tonight, it sucked, and
Okay.
life is dumb. No, you write your emotions. You see, here's what I hoped. I hoped to feel excited. I hoped to feel loved. I hoped to feel connected, but I didn't. I felt disappointed. I was sad. I was lonely. I am feeling lonely. And you just get those raw emotions out. And it is a powerful thing that works is when you get the emotions out, the emotion literally, you can imagine it saying, hey, I shared my message. Thank you. See you later. It has no other reason to stay with you. And then you'll feel the weight lifted off your shoulders. If you've ever vented, you know how you feel after you vent, a good vent session. And that's why, because the emotion has been heard and it left. And now you can make the logical decision that says, do I need to be worried about this sale or not? Okay, I was worried. That's cool. But now I don't need to be.
Love that. So powerful. And that's what makes you different as a personal and professional coach. You get the emotion. The emotion is everything, no matter
Mhm.
what. Whether it's your job, whatever, your life, relationships, it's always the foundation that's going along. And you can do all these other things, but unless you address the emotion, you're not getting to the core of really what's going on inside you. So, question, Ben, you said we get the emotion out, we identify it, and then look to its opposite. What do I really want over there? What if you can't attain that or easily attain that? Then where do you go from there?
If you can't attain it, is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah. What if you know that, yeah, that this happened, I named the emotion. The opposite of that would be if I could feel this, but I don't know that I could feel that anytime soon. Are you still stuck? I mean, you're in a great place because you purged out that emotion, you identified it, and you got it out of there. But if you're looking for hope to be hopeful, what if you're looking at this thing over here and you're like, I don't know that I can get that, or even pretty soon.
Okay, that's a great question. And we could go super deep, but we'll address it how
Well,
we
you know
need to,
what?
all right?
I'm gonna put it in practical terms. How about this?
Sure.
In your situation, number of years back, you had that party. You thought you were going to feel great. Have a bunch of people over, and it felt, for lack of a better description, empty. So the opposite of that is I would like, to be in a relationship or whatever it might be, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's going to take time to meet that special person, whatever it might be. How do you go from, now that you identified it, over to here where it's not something that's going to take place immediately?
Okay, great question. So I'll teach two things, and these are super important. So I'm glad you brought it up. I attended a seminar the other day where we were talking about defining emotions. And it's great. The world has gotten a lot better at defining their emotions. But if we stay there and we don't take it a step further, then we get stuck. And what does that mean? Hey, now we understand that people feel anxiety. Now we understand that people feel depression. But if we get stuck, then people say, hey, raise my hand. I have anxiety. I have depression. And then we're stuck. And then we become defined that way and become labeled that way. I have anxiety, and therefore I am this way. And that's dangerous because we're limiting ourselves based on a label. Everybody has an emotion. Everybody has felt anxiety at one time or another and depression at one time or another. I get that there are different ranges of it, but in its simplicity, everybody has felt that. So if we stay with just naming it and saying, well, I guess that's how I am, I have anxiety, then we're stuck.
Hmm.
And so we have to do what I call closing the loop. And that's this principle of, okay, I notice what I feel, I name it. Oh, anxiety. Now I understand what that is. I understand why I feel it. I understand
Sure.
when I feel it. I understand that it's common and that I'm okay, cool. And then what is its opposite that I want to feel? Instead of afraid or anxious, I want to feel confident. I want to feel connected. I want to feel loved. Great. Okay. So how can I do that? If I am, let's keep it in business terms for a second, right? If we want to reach out to a client, if we want to make that phone call, but it's the holidays, and you don't know if they're on break. You've called them a few too many times. Well, you're afraid you've called them a few too many times. You don't want to bug them because you're afraid that'll destroy the deal. And you say, well, I could live with this feeling of anxiety and not do it, but what would that cost me? Or you say, okay, well, I want the feeling of accomplishment to feel fulfilled. I want the deal to have closed already, and so that I can feel that. But I can't because I haven't made the phone call yet, and I don't know what they'll say. These are all thoughts and stories that we're telling ourselves in our head.
Yep.
And here's the truth of it. And I know it might sound crazy, but here's the truth of it. We get to choose how we live and how we feel. We don't get to control our circumstances, but we do get to control how we react to them. If you know the story of Viktor Frankl, right? When he's in the camps in Germany, going through torture, all sorts of crazy stuff. Read his story. He's going through things that most human beings don't ever do. And yet he found a way to live happily or in a state of happiness. How in the world is that possible? How can he attain that when he's not with his family? He's hardly eating. He doesn't really have clothes or possession. How can that happen? Because he learned that trick. Our mind has that ability to live in the state that we want to, even if our circumstances aren't there yet. And Steve, let me tell you, that is the secret to a lot of success. Instead of hoping it comes and hoping that changes how I feel, I can live how I want to feel. And that is the law of attraction that then brings what I want to my life.
I was just about to say law of attraction, and then you said it, because it is essentially what you're explaining, visualizing what you want. Even if, like in his situation, he's in that camp, he's being tortured, he has none of the comforts that a human should have, but he visualized a better situation. Not easy to do, and that better situation could even be, let's flip it completely on the other side. I I want that sports car, whatever it might be, whatever you want to feel it and the excitement of it and whatever comes along with it. Um, and if you do it right, eventually it can come along because you put it out there.
Exactly. And let me tell you, this is what we do in our first session. Okay. I get with a lot of people who are, fathers, entrepreneurs. They've been working on their business for a little bit, and it's just not going the way that they want to. They're not quite to the point of saying, do I close my doors? But it's more like, it's been kind of stagnant. I want growth and I need it. So, hey, I'm going to reach out to a coach. Cool.
Yep.
And that's one of the first things that we do is we say, well, what do you want your business and life to look like in, say, 90 days? And then we make it a reality in the brain. The brain, you can put yourself 90 days from now. My 11-year-old says, Dad, you can't tell the future. I'm like, oh, yeah? I can certainly influence it. So you put yourself 90 days in the future and say, what does it look like? And you don't say, I hope it does, or I think it might. You say, it is 90 days from now, and this is what it looks like. And that is saying, okay, I get it that I'm not feeling fulfilled or happy right now, but in 90 days I will. Why? Because this is what I've done, this is what's happened, and this is what I've learned. And then the magic is you just make it happen.
Stay in that positive frame of mind. And along the way, I truly believe if you're thinking that, you're opening yourself up mentally and always for those things that come your way. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. It
Yeah.
actually works. It really does. I've heard stories of people that have gotten different jobs, have like seriously changed their lives just because they, for lack of a better description, they manifested it. They
There you go.
manifested it.
There you go. Yeah, and to your point, if people aren't used to it, or maybe they've heard a bad experience, and so maybe some of those words like manifesting or visualization, maybe they have a bad taste in the mouth. But it's the power of the brain, and it's been said that business success, or even life in general, is 80% mindset and 20% mechanics. And that's why, I'm not one to teach, oh, these 10 magic steps will make everything great in your life. I have 10 steps that will help a lot. But what's more important is your mindset, your perspective, your focus, your emotions. And when you control those, then success comes.
When you work with people, Ben, do you find often that there's some resistance in the beginning to a lot of these principles where they're like, really, is that going to work? How do I do that? How do I think 90 days out? Or do you find a lot of times people are just receptive and they're on board?
I would say if they're working with me, they're receptive enough. Okay.
Mhm.
But there is some understandable hesitation because it's unusual, right? We're not literally not used to thinking that way. But if they trust the process, and it's neat because it's even funny. As I do this with people, I don't call it homework, but I say, hey, if you do this, then this will happen. And so it puts a little assignment in their brain, and they come back to me and say, man, I had your voice in my head, so I had to get it done. Or there was one time where somebody didn't fully complete the process, and yet still got a similar result. Why? Because it was on the mind. So
Hmm.
the way we talk about it, even if there's a little resistance, if you're open to the possibility and to give it a try, then it works.
Are you saying that a lot of this that we're talking about within the mind is the subconscious?
There's a lot because yes, you have to reprogram your subconscious.
And did you have to reprogram yours?
Oh my goodness, I did. I used to use this wording a lot where I would rewrite my memories and reprogram my mind because I literally had to. And until I understood this, I just thought, well, that's how life is. Life sucks. I guess I'm not good at that. I guess that's not going to work because I just thought, I guess that's how it is. But when you can understand your mind and understand your subconscious or reprogram your subconscious, then all of a sudden you access different powers of the mind, which allow you to accomplish amazing things.
So for you personally, why do you think you had those negative thoughts in your head that maybe you couldn't find success here or abundance there or move past what you were doing?
Okay, I'll give you an example. This is a very common one. We all have subconscious beliefs about money, whether it's good, whether it's evil, if you have too much of it, whatever it means, right? I grew up hearing things like, those business people are crooks and they charge so much money in these marketing scams and everybody's just trying to get your money. And so subconsciously, I thought, well, I can't ask for lots of money. I can't market because I don't want to be that type of person.
Yep.
But that's not a necessarily let's say a complete truth, right? Sure, that type of person might exist out there, but for a majority of the case, we're serving, we're giving value, and we're not out to gouge somebody, right? We're there to provide the value. And part of doing that is the sales process, the marketing process to let somebody know. So for me, until I understood this as a subconscious thing, it was a definition in my life.
Hmm.
But once you understand subconscious, that means, it's a belief I used to have, and now I can change that belief. Another way of saying it is it was the story I used to tell myself, and now I've learned a new one, a new, more empowering story.
It's so true. And as you said that, I have a friend who, similar situation, her family, when she was growing up, would say the same thing or similar things where we don't have enough money. Money doesn't grow on trees. You got to start saving. What are you doing? That was stuck in her head. And she, wonderful person, great connector, great heart, does so much charity work, but has this belief that she can't be abundant. And she's working three different jobs, single mom. She always says, I don't know, I got to start making money. And she would go to these high-end parties and as a hostess at the parties, but she would bring other people in, the DJ, the chef, somebody else, all in her circle, wonderful connector. And I said, well, that's great. And what a fantastic party. How did you help yourself in that? You're helping these people have abundance. What about you? Like, why didn't you take a little piece of that? As you're the person, the organizer. And she didn't get it. She didn't understand it. And it was from the beliefs from back in the day when she was younger that, just you can't do those things. You got to be careful about money and all of that. And she didn't even realize that she should have been doing something. I mean, it's elementary in a lot of ways, but she didn't provide for herself. But these people she was getting them jobs. But now
Right.
she's looking at it differently. And actually, in the charity that she's working with, it's grown, it's doubled in 1 year, and she's providing for a lot of people too. But I know that she's in a different mindset now, so I think that she'll make a connection through this charity, and that's going to propel her up because she's thinking
No,
differently.
such a great story. And that reminds me, two of my clients specifically were able to double their charge more and double their revenue for the year. We didn't change a whole lot about what they do or how they do it, but because their mindset and they believed they were worth more, believed that they could receive more and change their mindset towards money. I mean, that was a huge reason why it worked.
Yeah. Well, we could do a whole podcast on value. The
Right.
value you have on yourself, how other people look at you and value you. And I think that's a big thing right there. Ben, somebody wants to work with you and change some of these perceptions and this programming. It starts with they go to your website and contact you and you have a conversation with them.
Yeah, so go to the website, reachyourultimatepotential.com. There's a contact form on there that goes directly to me, and we can reach out and have a conversation. And really what happens with the subconscious, a lot of times we don't realize it's going on, and it takes a second opinion, an outside view like a coach to help point that out. I'm not here to say, you're wrong and here's why. It's to say, let's challenge that belief and let's see if that needs to be true for you. And if not, what would your life look like?
Yeah, I love your principles and the spin, if you will, that you put on things, or I call it a camera angle. So you look at it from a different angle that somebody might not see, and the light bulb goes off. It's like, I didn't think of it that way. Or even just naming an emotion and confronting it, which so many of us don't do. We're afraid to. I think we're just afraid to, but you need to, if you want to move your life forward. What's your website, Ben?
reachyourultimatepotential.com.
Yeah, that is it. There's nothing else to say when you say that, that URL. And wise of you to lock that one down. That's a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben, great talking with you, and thank you for all the insight. Really appreciate it, and happy holidays to you and your family.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you very much. We'll talk soon, okay?
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.